Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our conversation with the newly elected Senator from Texas, Ted Cruz. I'm Rich Lowry, editor of National Review, and as some of you might know, I've had a little bit of a complicated relationship with Donald Trump, but we had a little bit of a breakthrough, I think, a while ago. I went back to my office, and I found this brown envelope from the White House on my desk. I was very curious what this was. I opened up the envelope, and it's this ripped-out copy of one of my columns that ran in the New York Post, and I consider the New York Post the nation's newspaper. More importantly, the President of the United States considers the New York Post the nation's newspaper. And this is a column I'd written about how Trump was just such a dominating political and cultural presence. There's really no escaping him, even for Republicans who want to try to. And I thought it had a lot of incisive, trenchant commentary in this column. Made no impression on him. What he focused on was the headline that the New York Post editors had put on this column, which was, "There is only Trump." And Trump had taken out his black Sharpie, circled the headline, wrote a big arrow down to it, and wrote, "Rich, so true, Donald J. Trump." So we're going to talk a little bit about nationalism and about the border crisis. And Senator, one thing that really came out of this shutdown fight and the contention over building more barrier at the border is it kind of smoked out a foundational issue where you had top Democrats, Nancy Pelosi among them, saying walls themselves are immoral. You had Democrats saying, comparing our border barrier to the Berlin Wall, the barrier of a totalitarian society meant to keep its people inside rather than people coming illegally from outside. And this raised the question, if you think barriers are immoral, what are you going to do with the barrier we have? And someone you know a lot about, Robert Francis O'Rourke, actually answered this question in an interview and said, yeah, let's break out the bulldozers and knock down the border wall we have in El Paso, Texas. What do you make of this?
Look, I think there's a technical description for what's going on, which is that Democrats have gone bat crap crazy.
That's a political science term of art. Right?
If you look at the medical dictionary, it's under B. It is, in fact, a psychosis. Look, they're getting more and more and more extreme on every issue. Think back to the State of the Union. The State of the Union was a display of just how radical Democrats have gotten, where they embraced, they sat there embracing late-term abortion. Now, some of us are old enough to remember Bill Clinton standing there and at least claiming he wanted to see abortion safe, legal, and rare. Now, he wasn't telling the truth, but he was at least emphasizing rare. That's no longer the position of the Democratic Party. They are now for late-term abortion up to the moment of birth, or if you're Ralph Northam, after birth. I mean, that's crazy stuff. On immigration, you used to have Democrats who would say, well, yes, we should secure the border and we should have amnesty. That was the old Democratic position, and a lot of Republicans. Now, their position is, no, don't secure the border at all. Let everybody in and have amnesty. I mean, it is disconnected. And if you look at the fight over the border wall, it's important to understand it wasn't about substance. So in 2013, not too many years ago, Chuck Schumer and every single Democrat in the Senate voted in favor of 350 miles of new border wall. The shutdown we just had a month ago was over 234 miles of new border wall. Same new border wall. Now, look, I'm not smart enough to explain how you're for 350 miles of new wall, but willing to shut the government down to stop 234 miles of new wall. And at the end of the day, it's real simple. It is emotional, visceral hate. This is not based on logic. They don't have an argument. Here is their reasoning. Trump equals wall. We, the Democrats, hate Trump, therefore no wall. That's it.
So let me ask you, because I think one of my great frustrations watching how this played out, and I imagine the same is true of a lot of people in the room today, is Republicans had unified control of government in Washington, D.C., if I'm not mistaken, for 2 years.
Yes.
And how was it that we only came to focus on achieving one of the president's signature promises when Nancy Pelosi was becoming Speaker of the House? What happened in the prior 2 years that there wasn't funding for the barrier?
It is a very good question. Let me say both good and bad. Let's start with the good. I do think with a Republican president, Republican majorities in both houses, I think we won some big, big victories the last 2 years. We shouldn't lose sight of those. We passed an historic tax cut, the biggest tax cut of a generation, that included, among other things, repealing the Obamacare individual mandate. We've repealed job-killing regulations, and we're seeing the lowest unemployment in 50 years. We're seeing wages going up. We're seeing the lowest African-American unemployment that has ever been recorded. We're seeing the lowest Hispanic unemployment that has ever been recorded, which is why the mainstream media won't cover those facts at all. I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
It's just getting warmed up.
As I said, there's good and bad. I'm going to talk about the good first. We've also seen strong constitutionalist judges confirmed. On foreign policy, we're in the middle of the biggest military rebuild since Ronald Reagan. We've moved our embassy to Jerusalem, and we pulled out of the Iranian nuclear deal. Those are big, big victories, and they're victories that as conservatives we should be grateful we were able to deliver on. Now, you asked quite rightly, why didn't we finish the job on immigration? Why didn't we build the wall? Why didn't we deliver on more promises? I agree with you. We should have done much, much more. And I can tell you, last summer, starting in August, I did a long presentation to Senate Republicans that said, look, if you look at history, unified control of the federal government, both houses of Congress and the presidency, it's exceptionally rare for Republicans. It has happened a total of 8 years since World War II. And I said that everyone recognizes there's a real chance we're going to lose at least one house of Congress in November. If that's true, I think at the time there were 183 days to go. And I entitled the presentation, Carpe Diem, seize the day. If we have 183 days left to legislate, let's do that. And what I urged is let's use vehicles that the Democrats can't filibuster. In particular, let's use something called budget reconciliation, which y'all will remember was the vehicle that we passed the tax cut on in 2017. What matters about reconciliation is it's immune from filibuster, so you can pass legislation and the Democrats can't stop it. And what I urged my colleagues, and I urged the president, I urged the vice president, I urged the administration, let's take up a budget reconciliation and let's build the wall, let's fund the wall, let's get it done. And I want you just to imagine, if they had taken that advice, if we had had that fight and you had seen Elizabeth Warren screaming on the Senate floor to stop it, Bernie Sanders pulling what little hair he has out of his head, in September or October, and it culminated with Republicans standing together, funding and building the wall, I'll tell you right now, Rich, I don't think we would have lost the House of Representatives.
So let's dig a little deeper, because I talked about how in the border fight you saw some foundational issues surfaced. And I think the one that really is deepest here is the question whether we should have borders and the question of the legitimacy of the nation and the nation state and of nationalism. And there's kind of a loose notion out there that nationalism is something the Prussians came up with, these jackbooted thugs. But really, in the Western world, the foundational nation, for the way we think about this, was ancient Israel. God says to Abraham, I will make of thee a great nation. And he does. And you read in Numbers, there's an enormous passage where God actually sets out the borders of Israel like he's a surveyor. It's going to go around this hill, down here, go over here. And what's so amazing about the story is there's going to be a distinct people with a distinct territory, and And they never give up that idea of the nation, no matter what tragedies and catastrophes befall them. You have Jews revolting against Rome to reestablish their nation. And amazingly, 2 millennia later, they do succeed in reestablishing their nation. And in 1982, Menachem Begin, Prime Minister of Israel, they find the bones of some of the Jewish rebels from the last revolt against the Romans in a cave somewhere. They excavate these, they bury them with military honors, and Begin says, "Dear fathers, we are here in this place and we'll never leave ever again." In a nutshell, that is nationalism. That is concern for your own nation. And I'm curious, Senator, how you think about this issue that Donald Trump has brought to the fore. It's been hugely controversial. He's been criticized by the great and good all over the world, including the president of France, saying that there's something wrong with this attitude towards the nation.
The very opening words of the movie The Godfather are... I know it was you. That's a little bit later. The opening words are, "I believe in America." Let me tell you, look, I believe in America. And one of the things that drives the media and drives the far left crazy about President Trump is that he's willing to actually stand up and defend America. There are many pathologies that afflict the left, but one of them is a fundamental embarrassment about America's greatness. You saw that with Obama. You saw it when he started his presidency going on a worldwide apology tour, where those on the left are embarrassed. They're embarrassed about our prosperity. They're embarrassed about our freedom. We saw it manifested actually just this week, if any of y'all happen to see it, in a really idiotic rant. You're wondering who, because there are a lot of people that could have made that. But this particular one was Bill Maher. And Bill Maher had this rant about, he said, red states want to be blue states. We're the cool people, and they want to be just like us. Now, let me point out it was precisely that arrogant, condescending, smug superiority that is why Hillary Clinton lost and Donald Trump won in 2016. And if you desire to lead interacting with your fellow citizens saying you guys are a bunch of dumb, ignorant rubes that need to shut up and listen to me, is perhaps not the best message. I'll also say, as a Texan, I can say authoritatively no Texan has ever desired to be from any other state in the country or the history of the universe.
In fact, people from the blue state, California, are moving into the red state.
In vast numbers. By the way, the blue states with high taxes, high regulations, their people are fleeing because they don't have jobs. We saw, look, when New York chased Amazon out, because a bunch of New York socialists said, now, by the way, let's pause for a second. What on earth was Amazon doing? You're doing a nationwide search. Where do you want to base your second headquarters? I know, New York City. You almost deserve the pestilence that happens to you if you go into that willingly, going, okay, they're a bunch of crazy socialists. Let's go there. What do you think they'll do when we get there?
But Senator, you got to focus on, as AOC said, the $3 billion windfall that's going to accrue to New York from chasing out Amazon. You can decommission a lot of cows with that kind of money.
Look, Senator, magic money. By the way, let me say I support cows. I hope to see PETA supporting the Republican Party now that the Democrats want to kill all the cows. But when it comes to defending America, who we are, look, we are a nation of immigrants. My dad came from Cuba with nothing but when you come to America as an immigrant, you come because you want to believe in, you want to be part of, you want to be an American. And I'll tell you, being the child of an immigrant makes you love and value and cherish the incredible freedom that is this country.
All right, so we have time just for one last question, and obviously we're all gearing up for 2020. It's going to be an absolute war, and you had a really tough race in 2018, unexpectedly in a lot of ways. How is what happened in Texas in 2018 a preview for what we might see nationally in 2020?
Well, look, I think it foreshadows what we're going to see across the country. In Texas, in my reelection campaign, we saw on the other side they raised over $80 million. They outraised us 3-1. It became the most expensive Senate race in hard money in the history of the United States. Now, what does it mean to be outspent 3-1? It means, for example, our campaign had a total of 18 paid campaign staffers. Beto O'Rourke's campaign had 805. That's the differential we saw on the ground. And what the Democrats managed to do in Texas, they increased Democratic turnout more than 100%. It went from, in 2014, the last off-cycle election, it was at 1.8 million. They raised it all the way to 4 million. Now, fortunately, we turned out 4.2 million Republicans. That was the whole margin of victory. Now, what is the lesson for 2020? We are going to see the left turn out in massive numbers. They're going to flood cash. That differential is going to be the battle for the country. And so let me just close by saying, the men and women of CPAC, the young people of CPAC, it's going to take every one of you speaking out, volunteering, energizing, giving money, using your voice, because we're going to see a crazed assault from the left, more unhinged than anything we have seen. Now, there's also the good news. If we turn common sense conservatives out, we can win.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ted Cruz, thank you very much.